up against Mewto VUNION. I personally have not seen much of the Mewto VUNION, but it's very much a control-y archetype, trying to early on wall out the opponents, use those Snorlax to gourmandize and get the cards up to try and find the Mewto VUNION and put it into the discard pile.
Yeah, let's take a moment to actually talk about the players. We have Stephane Ivanoff from France coming off with a very strong finish in Bilbao, finishing second actually, playing a completely different deck though. It was an Arceus Duraludon deck, coming back here with the Giratina Lost Zone version, this time changing up his deck and seeing how far he can take it this time. And on the other side, a local player, Mateusz Nowosiad from Poland.
Yeah, and the Polish players, there's been a lot of them here. Some of them doing very successful. This could be one of those players. And they have their national tournament every year. We heard in the interview earlier on, they've been doing it for, I think he said almost 20 years or something. It's a crazy amount of time. And they consistently turn up to that, and it's grown so much in the last few years. And the most recent one, they had over 100 people. So the growth in Poland has been massive. This first regional here in Warsaw, allowing them to all turn up without the need to travel. And they're going to be coming into this, hoping that their homegrown Pokemon star can make it through this game.
Yeah, let's talk about the VUNION mechanic for once. So you have 4 Pokemon that come together as, like 4 cards coming together as one Pokemon, the Mewto VUNION. You need all of them in your discard pile, and then once per game and once only, you can activate them and bring them up forward as one Pokemon. If they get knocked out, they're out. You can't use them again. But first of all, get them all out, and one option to do though is using the Snorlax. Snorlax, a single prize Pokemon, gets you back to 7 hand cards at the end of your turn. So it helps you setting up, helping discarding by drawing more cards that help you to discard other cards, and then eventually you give up prizes early on, but the idea is that in the long term you have the control with the Mewto VUNION.
Yeah, and the Regieleki going down there to help get the resources back that are needed. The electromagnetic sonar for 1 colorless. You can put a trainer card from your discard pile into your hand. A very typical part of a control deck is to have that recycle from the discard pile and bring it back. Not the strongest of recycling, but it is going to allow for certain trainers, maybe ones that are needed to use multiple times where they don't have them in the deck a lot, to be able to bring them back in a pinch.
Yeah, and talking about the VUNION, it's actually, because it's consisting out of 4 cards, it has up to 4 attacks or abilities. In this case, the first attack for 1 energy gets you to attach 2 energies from your discard pile. The second energy does heals 200 damage in total. The third energy, Psyplosion,
the third attack there, the Psyplosion,
actually does 16 damage counters. That's quite a lot for 3 energies.
Yeah, and I haven't seen this matchup much, but from what I know, they're going to be looking to control the game with the heal. 300 hit points or 310 hit points is a lot to take out in the current meta. We've spoken about that, and maybe with some bulking, allowing it to take a lot more hits, it's going to be harder for them to take out. And so the whole idea here is you get that Mewto VUNION, it's able to wall out the rest of the game with loads of healing, and then you finish them off and disrupt them along the way with things like the crushing hammers that are in the list, and some energy removal with things like Flannery. So the deck is built around disruption until the point where you're able to get that Mewto VUNION down, and at that point, that's when you start to punish throughout the rest of the game.
Exactly. On top of all of that, you have the Galar Mine Stadium card, which increases the retreat cost of all active Pokemon by 2, which means that if you're able to gust one support Pokemon that your opponent might not be able to attack with, gust that up, have that in the active spot, and Galar Mine just prevents you from retreating, or also makes it way harder to retreat. That's one way to get more turns and disrupt your opponent even further down.
So a lot of you at home will be watching this. This might be your first experience seeing Mewto VUNION being used, and if it's not, you know how much this matchup can go the long distance, where they build up the turns, trying to disrupt their opponents, and then eventually get that VUNION out. And we didn't mention the prizes. You know, VUNION's biggest downfall as a card is if one of them's prize, you then have to find ways to peel it out, and there are cards that allow you to do that with like Pioneer. And I think that's going to be the main approach, but it's not guaranteed at that point. So prizes can be the most important part of this deck at the start. Some useful assets in the prizes, some tools there that can be useful, especially the big Parasol. Could be a way to stop that Star Requiem, which can be a way to finish off the game for the Giratina.
Absolutely. Like 310 HP is quite a lot. Star Requiem would just outmaneuver that and straight out pick up the knockout. However, if you have the big Parasol, which is currently priced, you need to find a way to access that. You can prevent your Mewto VUNION from being knocked out. On the other hand, there is the Miltank, the one-off Miltank, which prevents opponents' Pokemon V to damage it, which is a great way. However, on the same side, Giratina V, the V version, has the Shred attack, which just ignores all types of effects on the Miltank, for example.
Yeah, we saw Miltank have success in Blissey at Lille. It came second, and a big part of that is the Miltank walling. And the reason why Blissey is not a popular deck is purely thanks to Giratina V being able to shred through those Miltanks, but then also be able to hit one-hit KOs on a big finisher. So Giratina in this situation, I don't know this matchup that well. I imagine it plays well into this just due to that consistency that's there and the tools that Giratina V and VStar have to be able to work through any of the slowing tools that are on the other side will work well. Maybe in this case the disruption through crushing hammers might be the key here, and try and play for that energy denial with a little bit of bench disruption by sending stuff up with the Galar Mine. So an interesting approach here for Mateusz.
Absolutely. It's like a slow start into this game. We talked about the potential of the big Parasol, which is currently priced, but Stephane doesn't know that. Some Lost Zone players actually play that Lost Vacuum to play around tool cards, but looking at the list of Stephane, he does not feature that card in his deck.
Yeah, we've done a lot of setting the scene here for you guys. This is a complicated matchup, lots of things to think about, lots of one-offs in both decks, including ones that are prized. And I think right now we're seeing most of the turns being taken by Stephane as he has to feed through that Lost Zone, start getting things into the Lost Zone using that flower selecting, and build up the 7 Lost Zone cards for the Mirage Gate, and maybe beforehand going for that 4 for the Cramorant, which he has a few of. And otherwise, going to be looking to get all the way up to 10 so that all options are available, including Sableye and the Star Requiem on Giratina V-Star.
I do wonder if we will see Drapion making an appearance here, considering Mewto VUNIon is weak to dark Pokemon. Not quite sure, maybe you can help me out on the interaction between Drapion and Mewto VUNIon, if it counts as 4 Pokemon V or 1. I suppose it's 1, so it's not as easy to attack with that Drapion, but that could come into effect for sure.
Yeah, I think the Drapion, you can power it up. It's a lot of energy, 4 energy, and there isn't any Rapid Strike, Fusion Strike Pokemon in play for the Mewto VUNIon deck. So it is possible, though, with the Mirage Gate, and that's something people often forget with these ability-based Pokemon. Same thing with Cramorant, although Cramorant will be a lot tougher because there's water energy involved. But Charizard we've seen powered up a little bit today in Lost Box. So just because they have that ability that makes the attack cost so much better, you can look to just manually attach energy or go through that Mirage Gate.
Yeah, and for Stephane it's quite interesting because he knows that Mateusz has like a slow start with his deck. He can take all the time in the world to make sure that he's not overbenching, that he's not maybe discarding or putting cards into the Lost Zone that should not belong there. He's definitely taking his time here. We don't see any attacker beyond that potentially that Greninja ready yet. He's taking a very slow approach, and I mean at this point, playing against a control deck like that Mewto VUNIon, you might not be able to finish 3 games. So if you're looking at the approach of maybe winning 1, that can go a long way here. Yeah,
1 piece of the Mewto VUNIon in the discard pile now. So early on, that is the plan, and you can see there another piece ready to go. Hard to search for as a Pokemon because you need generic Pokemon search. It's not considered a basic Pokemon. It's not considered an evolution Pokemon. You can find it through that Ultra Ball and any kind of V Pokemon search. So Adventurous Discovery got used a bit early on for the VUnions, but it does mean you have to naturally draw into it or use those Ultra Balls to chain them. And so that is the hardest part of this deck, and probably the main reason the Snorlax has been so effective to increase that draw rate and hopefully find it through natural draw.
Yeah, let's see. Like again, there's a Greninja Radiant on both sides. Concealed cards will get you even more cards as well. Discarding energy, drawing 2 more cards. One very side fact here at this point is the fashion choice of Stephane. I've seen him following him for a few tournaments now, and his nail color is actually matching his sleeves at every single tournament. So he has black sleeves and black nail color this time. I've seen him with like rocking all kinds of colors. That's just a side fact, but I thought it was worth mentioning here.
I love that. We've been admiring the swag that people have been wearing, but not admiring the nails, and that's a nice little touch there. These players, obviously, they know there's a chance they'll go on stream, especially the ones who are as successful as Stephane. And it's fun just to have that little thing that it makes you feel confident. And it can play a factor in going in and performing. It's like putting on your favorite dress or your favorite suit. It makes you feel a little bit smarter. And so a lot of these players have come to terms with some tricks, like what makes them feel confident when they go out and perform.
Absolutely, because considering you have to go through such a long tournament, 9 rounds of Swiss, just being comfortable with yourself and with your performance goes a long way for sure. We're seeing like a lot of decisions being made here. Looking at his hand cards, he has the Crashing Hammer, which will be disruption later on. But first of all, like I think before you start disrupting, Stephane has to give you some attackers that you can like maybe discard the energies off or go a long way, basically.
Yeah, and we see the lost zone. I think it might be up to 7 now, which puts the Mirage Gate in as an option. But now we're going to start seeing that Tina potentially getting powered up. And this is the exciting stage now for the Lost Box. So when it can start activating. Often we see them have to power through the deck to get up with the tempo of the game so they can make sure they can keep up with their opponents who are powering up really fast. In this one, as we said, playing a little bit calmer, Stephane aware that he doesn't want to start overplaying cards, start overplaying energy and get himself stumped by some of the control aspects of the Mewto VUNION deck. And that's the worst thing you can do. If you take away your options in a potential future situation, it's all in your loss zone, then you can get snookered and not find a way out.
Absolutely. And you might be thinking, well, Giratina V, you have the VStar option. Why would you like attack with the Giratina V version? It not only has access to Shred, which we have seen on a bunch of different Pokemon in the past, but it actually deals 160 damage. And that's enough to take out every single prizer in the opposing deck.
And not just that, losing energy to the lost zone through the lost impact is a negative factor. And you don't want to start draining your energy, especially when there's things like Crushing Hammers in your opponent's deck list. That kind of stuff can really put you on the back foot and mean you run out of energy. So Shred, not only a great option, Wall Breaks means that it hits enough with 160, but energy stays on the Giratina.
Yeah, very convenient. Not only ignoring all types of effects that one of Miltank wouldn't play a big role, but also starts taking out knockouts. And eventually, if that Mewto V unit comes down and doesn't have the Parasol available, basically, you can evolve and Star Requiem for a knockout.
So we see the first attack announced there, Shred onto the Snorlax. The only way Snorlax is surviving that Shred is through potential Cape of Toughness.
Absolutely, they would add 50 HP.
But it's in the prizes, so that's not going to be the case here. So Shred should now consistently break through these Pokemon. That's really where the Mewto VUNION needs to come out. That's the ultimate goal here, and take away all the single prizes around it. But as we see, Mateusz is trying to find more ways to get that Mewto VUNION back, and is going to try and slow down the opponent for a bit.
But until she hits Tails, there is no energy removal on that Giratina, keeps all his energies. I'm interested to see if we see that electromagnetic sonar that you mentioned earlier get one item back from your, or a trainer card back from the discard pile. That might be one of these Ultra Balls that gets you more pieces out of the deck.
Yeah, there's so many different options for what you might need. It could be any of the one-offs that we've mentioned so far, and realistically, when you're putting that Regieleki up front, you're accepting that it's probably going to get knocked out, but the value of that trainer card is more valuable than a prize card, so we'll see what potentially might get brought back here.
So it's interesting that the big Parasol ended up on the Regieleki, right?
Is that, yeah, the big Parasol's there, so I guess trying to avoid any kind of effects, maybe just trying to get it out of the hand. I don't know what they're thinking about with that. I'm sure there's someone smarter than us, including Mateusz, who's got a reason behind it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Power Pad there, recycling some of the supporter cards in the discard pile. They'll be going back into the deck. So disruptions there with Roxanne, and I think that was Misfortune Sisters.
Yeah, very well. Could very well be. It's absolutely in his deck for sure. So yeah, getting some supporters back into his deck. But yeah, there's no clear way that how or anytime soon Mewto VUNION is coming out. There's still a Snorlax, so maybe he's deciding not to attack actually, lowering his hand count and then using Snorlax's ability on the bench to draw back to 7 cards. We'll have to see if he prefers that over picking up one item before giving up that Regieleki.
So when that Mewto VUNION comes out, you mentioned the Drapion being a great option. I think that could be the main focus, because Star Requiem not working on Mewto VUNION. So that will need to be coming from the the Drapion maybe. That is it's a way we've not seen it used before much. Normally in there for the Mew matchup.
Absolutely.
But it could be the secret tech that they needed for this exact matchup here.
Yeah, there's definitely multiple ways to use that Pokemon. And it looks like he used Electromagnetic Sonar and got 1 energy back, and the turn went back to Stephane from my understanding. But turn is still going on, for sure. I think he's going through his discard pile, laying out the cards. And
yeah, we've spoken about this big parasol here. It's just come to me that the photon barrier on Mewtwo V Union prevents all effects from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon done to this Pokemon. So that will mean that Star Requiem is not a possibility. These V Unions have 4 different cards worth of stuff on them, and we just missed that one when we went through it earlier. So we won't be seeing the Star Requiem used for Mewtwo V Union. But at this point, the real question is that V Union going to come out?
yeah, I'm looking if there's a potential path to peak here that I don't see, however. There's a Temple of Sinnoh, which would make all special energy turn into single energies, but there's no path to peak to prevent that ability from Mewtwo V Union.
Yeah, this is fun here. Us as casters are watching this. We're trying to work out what the plan is here for Mewtwo V Union, and there's a lot of people out there who won't be that familiar with the matchup, and that's why it's done so successful. I'm sure Mateusz has probably caught a lot of people off guard revealing these cards, and people thinking, what plays Gormandise these days? And that's why having these unusual decks, Mewtwo V Union's had some success, so some people who've done their research will be aware of it. But then for those who are less experienced with it, maybe they've never played against it unless they've got a friend who likes using it, it'll catch them off guard. And we've seen some interesting decks recently break through, including stuff like Blissey, where people weren't prepared for the matchup. They don't know the numbers, they don't know the route to victory as well. Whereas when you're playing the deck like Mateusz does, you know all the situations because you've experienced every one of them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like, matchup inexperience in your opponents makes them more likely to misplay as well, because they don't know the numbers, they don't know the paths, they maybe haven't played the matchup as often yet, so they might be unfamiliar how to approach it. They might overbench or use any resources early on that they will need later. Yeah,
having played a few niche decks before in my time, my favorite thing is when you put a card down and the opponent just goes, can I just have a little read of that card real quick? I just need to remind myself what it does, because the last time I looked at that was when I opened it from a booster box, and I don't remember what it looked like. So yeah, that will be definitely I mean, Stephane's going to know what Mewtwo V Union does. He's an experienced player. He's probably played against it and done his research. But you can see there notes being taken, and we were speaking a bit about that earlier on when Joe Bernard took notes of his prizes. And this is going to be so important in the Mewtwo V Union matchup to take those notes.
So it's important. This is actually the prizes layout, because he played 2 Pioneer. So he looked at the prizes, then had his hand basically to put back into the prizes, and now has mapped out which prizes were. So once he draws prizes, he can actually decide which prizes to draw.
And we get to see which ones he's put back in there. So the Boss and the Flannery in there, and Miltank, as we mentioned, not really that relevant in this match because of the Shred. So that's gone into the prizes for safekeeping, maybe for later. So right now, Mateusz is doing everything to get set up. Meanwhile, Stephane's just going to keep announcing attacks until that Mewtwo V Union comes out, and then from there, work out what's next.
Yeah, I mean, currently at 4 prizes left, so might very well pick up 1 or 2 more prizes. But from my understanding, there's a judge call going on, so we have yet to find out what was currently happening on stage, and players are waiting for a decision. So we'll find out, and we'll let you know as soon as we are aware.
I mean, this is intriguing for me. I'll be completely honest. I haven't seen this matchup. I mean, I have. I watched it once and was like, wow, the V Union somehow fits on the bench, because it takes up a lot of space.
4 cards, yes.
So for those of you at home who do know this matchup, you're probably more aware of what's going on than we are. But it's always going to be different depending on what the route is for Mateusz. He's not going to always be able to do the same thing every time. Depends on what's prized, depends on what he draws. So the route to victory is going to be different every time.
Yeah, and it seems like the match is supposed to move on again. We have a decision from the judges, and the game is going on. There's actually a Morpeko being benched.
Yeah, so Morpeko, another card that a lot of you might not have seen too much of, and it is that Torment. Choose one of your opponent's active Pokemon attacks during your opponent's next turn. That Pokemon can't use that attack. So right now, if we're looking at the Giratina, that's where that Shred will be taken away, and some retreating might be necessary to bring back the ability to use that attack.
Yeah, so can't use Shred anymore, is only left with Abbot Sea King, which looks at your top 4 cards and draws 2, puts 2 into your lost zone.
Bit like a Colress.
Yeah, but that's not getting you anywhere. So that's a great way to stall out further on. But yeah, Morpeko nowhere in the active position yet, doesn't have an energy, so it's not attacking anytime soon, unless Mateusz promotes that. But it looks like
a little escape rope there.
Escape rope being played.
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned the Drapion being the potential trump card that Stephane is keeping and not trying to reveal too soon. I mean, Mateusz is going to be aware that that could be the case. You know, Mew's done so well in the past. People are going to be including Drapion. It is still hard to power up. 4 colorless energy is tough. And so it's not going to be just drop down and turn it into a powerhouse. You're going to have to save some Mirage Gates. There will be a little bit of combination needed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not only 1 Mirage Gate, it's 2. So you do have the option to maybe like bench it. You could potentially have the option, bench it early on, attach 1 energy, then you always have the Mirage Gate plus 1 extra manual attachment to attack. Otherwise, you can save that and maybe play 2 Mirage Gates, get 4 energies out, and therefore attack. But yeah, like before the Mewto VUNION is coming out, that Drapion is like non-relevant, I suppose. Yeah,
and with the Drapion, he's just looked it up there. And if he benches it, it's going to be an instant snipe attempt from the Mewto VUNION if that gets out. So it is revealing the strategy here. A good backup attacker after the Giratina. With the Giratina hitting for 280 is going to be a lot of damage, but it's not going to get the knockout. So that's when you start worrying about the potential for healing for VUNION. So there's a lot on the line here for Stephane when putting that Drapion down. It really needs that there for when the VUNION comes out.
All right, there seems to be some confusion about a dice roll earlier on. That was the just decision based on, so nothing to worry about. It's quite interesting. So Stephane is down to 3 prizes now. So if he takes out that VUNION, which actually gives up 3 prize cards, he would win the game. So it's interesting to play the Drapion down, have that option. And I feel like if Mateusz is not putting Mewto V into play anytime soon, he might be running out of time in this game.
Yeah, exactly. And that's always the challenge with control. When you've got the time there as well, you're trying to slow down the play, you're trying to control the game, and it becomes really hard to get multiple games out in a match. But we are here now, coming up to about halfway through this round, so there is still going to be plenty of time for a game 2 and maybe a game 3. But the problem you've got with Mateusz's deck is you don't have any instant way to win. You don't have that donk potential, you don't have that aggressive start. You have to play the controlled approach, and then that's where you really need your opponents to give you an idea of whether it's possible in that first game, because otherwise you're going to need to scoop earlier.
Yeah, and we talked about that Morpeko earlier on. It has an energy attachment now, so it is able to use that Torment and block Shred. We talked about a way to play around it is by maybe escape roping and then bringing it up front again, because that effect is no longer active then. That would be one way to get around that, or maybe get another attacker ready. We see that 1 Mirage Gate is actually priced, and I think 1 was used on the Giratina earlier. So he has access to 2 more Mirage Gates. He's playing a full 4 copies in his deck. With having so many different attackers, it's definitely valuable to have more than the typical 2 or 3 copies. And there's 2 dice rolls. One is heads, one is tails, so he gets 1 item back from the discard pile.
Yeah, so Silene, roll 2 coins, and for each heads you can put a card from your discard pile, any card you like, on the top of your deck. So a great way to recycle important cards. You know, I think one heads roll is always fair with that when there's 2 coins being flipped. So
on the other hand, there's like a quite interesting mechanic with the Pyukumuku, which you can always put on your bench, activate the ability, it goes under your deck, and you draw 1 card. So that's a great cycle to put a card on your deck, then put the Pyukumuku under it to draw that card. It's a great way to play a great combination.
Yeah, so all that synergy there in the Mewto VUNION deck. And as someone who is very familiar with Giratina's game plan, I am seeing a trend here of I'm going to keep attacking, but with the Morpeko, it's going to be a bit tougher now because they have to try and find a secondary attacker. And with the Galar Mine, there's also going to be that difficulty of retreating. So now there's going to be the questions in Stephane's head is how do I keep this flow of just attack, attack, attack?
Yeah, we haven't really seen any big like hand disruption coming from Mateusz yet. So looking at Stephane's hand, he kept drawing more cards. and he has a quite full hand, basically, a lot of potential, a lot to work with. And I think there was a switch option here, bringing up his Cramorant.
Oh, what an option. That's what we've been talking about all weekend, is the options that are available for Lost engines and for the Intelliant engines. You have one prize options, you have low energy costing options, you have spread options, and here Cramorant is a great option to one-hit knock out that Morpeko, only 80 hit points on it. So if that Cramorant spits innocently, then we'll be seeing 110 and that Morpeko's gone.
Yeah, and one further prize taken. He's down to 3 prizes, so I mean, the path is clear. You either take out 3 single prizers. There's the Morpeko, there's the Raiding Greninja, and the Snorlax on the bench. Either take out these 3 or take out the Mewto VUNION. However, looking at the discard pile, I think I see 2 pieces of the Mewto VUNION. So it's quite interesting to see. Like, you would consider someone who focuses so heavy on Mewto VUNION would have a better time getting the pieces out, right? We're looking probably at the 7th turn here, and there's only 2 pieces in the discard pile, so it's not really going well for Mateusz.
And that's just part of the challenge of Mewto VUNION and VUnions in general, is that Pokemon search is not as good for a VUnion piece. It has to be generic Pokemon search. I mentioned earlier Adventurous Discovery, but then you start dedicating supporters to getting your Mewto VUnion pieces. There was also the supporter, I've forgotten the name of it just off my head, that came with the Mewto VUnions in the product, and you know, that was amazing for searching for VUnion pieces. But as far as I can tell, this deck is meant to draw into it, because that's why you have the Gorman dies every turn to try and naturally draw into it. Use those Ultra Balls to discard and search for following pieces. But a Clara are going to be played here. What's
getting 2 Pokemon and 2 energies back, maybe Morpeko back, and then blocking attacks. But with single like switches, a scoop up net, there are a lot of options for Stephane. Like, considering he has such a massive hand, like sometimes you play around some options of your opponent, but if you let them have like 10, 11, 12 hand cards, something around that, it's really hard to like hope that they do not have the switch option, the scoop up net, energies. Like, they just have too many cards in hand.
Especially Lost Engine, they put so much switch potential in to try and get those early flower selectings from the Comfey. So what we're seeing here is trying every little option from Mateusz, and as we mentioned before, we've seen scooping be so vital today in match management and time management, and the key about that is really how are you going to win this game from here? And if there isn't an option, then you're going to start having to wonder, shall I scoop now so I've got enough time afterwards? And that could come from the experience, right? Mateusz is a local. I'm not sure how much experience he's had on a high-pressure table like this, especially one where if he wins, he goes through to day 2. So a lot of pressure going into this. These kinds of decisions, you don't want to scoop and then someone tell you afterwards when you walk away, you could have won that game if you'd done this, this, and this, you know?
Yeah, it's a high-pressure situation. I've played on stream before, and there's so many things going through your mind, and you might not see win conditions. And I've been in that position, losing on stream, getting off stage, and being told, like, no, like, you could have easily won this by doing X, Y, and Z, but that the high-pressure situation gets to you. But I don't think Mateusz is particularly happy about seeing that scoop-up net, removing that Cramorant, which was blocked to use attacks, having Giratina active now, another Shred taking another prize, and Stephane Ivanoff is down to 1 single prize left. It's interesting, we talked about scooping from both sides. Mewto VUnion, not in play yet. Doesn't look like it's coming anytime soon. It would be an option for Mateusz as well to choose that conceding game 1, going into game 2 option and hoping to get a setup earlier. Because if he wants to win this round, he needs to win 2 rounds.
Exactly.
2 sets.
And the draw is not a good result for either of these players at this point. They'll a loss or a win is much more important, because they are on 16 points right now. They need to get 19 points to make it through, and if they only lose win or draw win, it doesn't matter. So they're just going to play for the result now. And Mewto VUnion as a deck, we mentioned, Mateusz is the one who knows it best. We're sat here, and I'm very unfamiliar with it, so we've just got to trust him as a player that he knows the route to victory here. But this is always going to be the question, is how do I win from here? And I've seen people scoop early. I've seen people make mistakes and throw away games. It's always possible, especially in a high-pressure game. So it's often worth playing on, but some of the more experienced players seem to be more comfortable scooping due to that it's not the first time they've been there.
Yeah, of casting last round the Polka Mewto, and we thought that Magnus was about to lose the game and maybe could have scooped to have more time in game 3, but then he found path to victory. He found every single piece he needed, disrupted with Roxanne, and then eventually won the game. So yes, playing it out can be an option. However, we talked about the standings. They're both at 16 points with 2 more rounds to play. If they tie both rounds, they're at 18 points and do not advance. So they will need a win either this round or next round. So tying here doesn't help either of these players. Of course, if you win the next one, the tie is better than a loss here, but they will both play for the win for sure. Stephane Ivanoff in a very comfortable position. I like how calm he is, how composed he is, just sitting there watching the game action. He seems to have his plan sorted out and just watching what Mateusz can offer in response.
Yeah, and speaking from experience, a lot of these top players, they love the game, and so they're fascinated by how their opposition are playing. And you see right now, Stephane acknowledging moves, acknowledging decisions, intrigued by what's going on, and we'll probably be thinking, oh, I've got to bear that in mind for next game and so on. So just trying to download as much information from the opponent as possible and maybe learn a few tricks as well. So we do see the final Mewto VUNION part taken out the deck. If there's a way to discard it, then that card can be brought into play. And with the scoop up net and the Greninja, there's every possibility that the Mewto VUNION's the last knockout needed.
Yeah, let's see if he has all the options he needs here. So there's the last piece. You said we only need to discard it and then activate it. It won't have any energies coming with it yet. Of course, you could attach one, use its first attack to attach more energies, but that gives your opponent just one more turn to attack into it, actually. So yeah, I'm seeing some supporter cards in his hand there, but I don't see a clear option to discard yet. So let's see if he's playing the boss. I think he's trying to buy just another turn to be able to discard it. But once again, we talked about this. Stephane Ivanoff has a very, very big hand. He has a lot of cards and one single switch option that he might just show him.
There we go.
And there we go. That's a victory in game 1.
So we're going to be going into that game 2 with Stephane having the advantage. 20 minutes left on the round, so it's going to take a bit.
Outplayed by switching around, having all these switching options. So it's not the greatest stuff of Stephane, with that Luminion in the start. But yeah, I see the Battle VIP pass, so there's enough potential to get the comfies out of your deck, and maybe he has a switching option as well. And go based on that.
Yeah, and what we've mentioned with this Giratina deck is the amount of options it has available are so key. Having the access to the single prizes, you can come in and splash energyless damage in the form of Cramorant, and 1 energy to get damage counters with Sableye, and then you've even got all of the shred from Giratina V and so on. But yeah, you just point out the prizes.
Yeah, looking at the prizes, Mateusz this time has one of the Mewto VUNION pieces priced. We actually saw him in the last game using Pioneer twice.
Yeah.
So yeah, he not only has to use it this game, but then ideally hit the piece with the first supporter he plays to get like a head start or get like a sooner Mewto VUNION into play. But yeah, that's one extra step he has to go through.
We saw a Giratina Lost Box, well, Giratina Lost Engine deck earlier with only one Giratina V in the deck because they had one prize. This one's got 3. So sometimes if the players look to try and create some space, they'll play with 2 Giratina Vs and maybe the 3 Giratina VStar. The moment one's prized, you're then on the back foot trying to find that. It might not come naturally. You might have to really look for it. And if it gets knocked out, you're in a rough spot. But not the problem here for Stephane. Those prizes seem to be pretty in favour of him. All those cards are cards. Maybe the boss is one that he might be concerned about. Otherwise, all those cards. But you mentioned the Luminion start would be a problem if it wasn't for that VIP pass.
Yeah, VIP pass gets you 2 Pokemon, and on top of that he has the Quick Ball he showed us as well, so he has access to 3 Pokemon. Maybe if he gets that Greninja and has an Energy in hand as well, he gets to draw another additional 2 cards, because on top of getting Comfy into play, ideally he wants to get it into the active position to make use of that ability as well. So let's see what cards he's picking off that Battle VIP pass, and if he's going for that Quick Ball, picking up more cards there as well.
Yeah, and the advantage you've got with decks with the VUNION, similar to how you do when you've got something like the Archeops in the future for Lugia, is having vital parts that you just need to get in the discard pile. They don't affect your starting turn. So you see how the Luminion is part of the starting turn for Giratina. You're never going to start with the VUNION pieces, and you're never going to start with the Archeops when it comes to Lugia next set. So you're always going to be able to discard them and not worry about them making the bad start. That means you can be more consistent with your starting cards. You know, he's got 7 9 basics on the side of the Mewto VUNION deck, 4 of which are that Snorlax Gorman dies, and that's to try and make that as consistently as possible your starting basic. And you see right now the Snorlax is out there as the starting basic.
Yeah, we also got a little glimpse on Mateusz's hand, and it seems like he has 2 of the Mewto VUNION pieces in his hand already. And if I saw that correctly, there was an Ultra Ball as well. So you might be able to discard both of them and then draw the last piece in his deck, the third one, then maybe get an idea that one is prized as well to ideally quickly pay that Pioneer as well. On the other hand, Stephane used his turn to check out his deck, deck check, making sure like which cards are prized and not, taking his time there, and then eventually getting 2 comfy out. On top of that, he had the switching card, and he had Cold's Experiment. So he's doing quite well on getting his Lost Zone counter up to 3 already, and potentially even further.
That's not a nice Chorus Experiment right there. Lots of energy in it, and the decisions are challenging here. The obvious Battle VIP pass, that's one of the benefits of Chorus Experiment. It goes well. Getting rid of the water energy, expecting to never need the Greninja, which is why you have that water in there. Prioritizing those grass energy, playing 4-4, 4 grass, 4 psychic, some people opting for the 3 grass, and that's what I'm noticing here with Stephane's Giratina list. It's very clean. There is not a huge amount of risk taken with the counts. 3 Giratina we mentioned, the 4 grass energy with the 4 psychic. There is that 1 capture in there, so playing for the safer counts, and lots of consistency will come from that, which is key when you're playing in these long tournaments all day long. You don't want prizes or a bad lost flower selecting your Chorus Experiment to decide whether you can win a game or not.
Yeah, and the turn is actually going over to Mateusz, and it's actually what's happening. He's using his Ultra Ball, discarding 2 Mewto VUNION, getting his 3rd piece out, and realizing that 1 piece is prized with this deck search. So 2 in discard, 1 in hand. That's really great start here. Potentially getting out the Mewto VUNION in this game this time. He needs a way to discard the 3rd piece and then eventually use his supporter Pioneer to get access to his prize cards. And then again, it's a 50-50 which side, which 3 cards he is accessing to potentially find that Mewto VUNION. We see another supporter, 2 dice rolls, 1 heads, 1 tails again. He gets 1 card out of the deck being put on top of the deck.
Interesting. The Silene going for the quick ball. That's I think that's the first time I've ever seen a Silene used for a quick ball. Normally going for something really important like a like a power tablet in the Mew match, and right here just needing it for
discarding the 3rd piece in his hand actually. Yeah. So he's using Snorlax's ability to draw up to 7 cards. So now he has the 3rd piece in hand, and he has a quick ball to discard it. So 3 pieces will be in the discard pile by the end of the next turn. The question is, does he have a Pioneer in hand maybe? I'm not quite sure. It might be the middle card. If not, he has access to more cards. He can actually get his own Radiant Greninja out with that quick ball search there. And then potentially discard an energy, get access to more cards, and go from there.
Yeah, we mentioned how Mewto VUNION has to come across naturally through draw, and maybe using the Gorman dies to fill that hand up. And the same thing is true here of that Pioneer. It needs to be found naturally. It needs to be found through drawing. So it can be quite challenging at times to do so. And that's why we need that slow-paced game to allow for the natural draw to find the Pioneer, because otherwise that Mewto VUNION is just going to sit in those prizes. And even when that supporter does get used, there's a 50-50 right here. There's 6 prizes. Only 1 of them is a Mewto VUNION. 3 will be taken and replaced. But this is going to be a tough one, and I think there's going to be a bit of frustration if that Pioneer is played and it's not going to get the Mewto VUNION.
And I'm quite sure that Stephane was not quite happy about his last turn. Like he could only really attach 1 energy and give it back over to Mateusz, who's now discarding the 3rd piece, and he used Byakumuka first actually, which allows him to search it back and then can use the ability again. That's a great tool and gives him basically 1 free card in his hand. So he's looking through his deck. If not already realized, we'll see now that the last piece is in the discard pile. So he needs an option that two ways. Either you play your Radiant Greninja down, start discarding energy. So we saw 1 Psychic Energy in his hand. That gives him access to more cards, because sooner or later he needs that Pioneer to get the Mewto VUNION out of his deck.
Can we give a little shout out to Snorlax? Snorlax has had some great cards recently. The Gorman dies one of my favourites. I've loved playing that in some single prize decks. Doesn't get enough love, Snorlax, because he's, well, he does, he's quite popular, but 3 different cards that have all done so well in the meta recently. The block Snorlax has had a little bit of play, and then the big, powerful attack coming out of that Snorlax. So a wonderful Pokemon with wonderful cards, and it always does well in those fun formats like this. Some GLC happening here, Gym Leader Challenge at Warsaw. So the people are going to be bringing out their Snorlaxes for that, I'm sure, if they go for normal type, because it's always a very powerful, big basic attacker. But back to the game, that's going to be the Misfortune Sisters used to look at the top 5 cards, and any items you find there can be discarded.
So yeah, further disruption, getting rid of an escape rope and a scoop up net, which makes it harder to switch around, but also like pick up Pokemon that are locked in the active position, for example. There's a Paw Pet as well on top of that, putting 2 Shalene and the Misfortune Sisters back into the deck. But again, it was a different supporter. It was not the Pioneer, so he still needs to access that last Mewto VUNIon. On the other side, however, Stephane didn't have as strong as a start. He's low on the Lost Zone counter, only 4. His Giratina is not in the active, is not even fully set up yet, only has 1 energy so far. We haven't seen any Crushing Hammer yet, but keep in mind there are only 4 grass energies. We saw the difficult decision earlier with the Callers Experiment where he had multiple energies. He decided to actually discard the water energy, which can be used to attack with the Greninja, but if you're attacking with the Giratina, you need that grass and psychic energy, which he has of, but again, with the not having the Mirage Gate activated yet, being able to deny energies and discard that grass energy can go a long way and give a little bit more time for Mateusz to finally find that final piece.
Yeah, Stephane definitely in a strong position here, getting that first game win. Is just trying to get an attack off here. Realistically, it's not easy when you don't want to start using these switch cards too quickly. He's definitely contemplating that now. If he starts switching too much, then he's not going to have it as outs later on when the gust happens with the Galar Mine. So just playing very conservatively here, not trying to use too many resources, and that will hopefully help with the Giratina here and Abyss Seeking being used here. Very similar to Chorus Experiment.
Yeah, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck and then put 2 into your Lost Zone, which increases the Lost Zone counter. And if you look closer, you saw that he has 2 Mirage Gate in his hand, actually. So now going over 7 in his Lost Zone counter, being able to access Mirage Gate next turn and then being able to finally start attacking. On the other side, it's back to Mateusz using concealed cards again, drawing 2 more cards. And will we finally see that Pioneer?
Hopefully, for his sake. You know, this is the combo decks. As much as they're when you're playing against them, you just hope they don't hit. When you're watching them play on the feature table, you really want them to hit those combos. So at least we can see it in action. First game, we didn't get to see the Mewto VUNIon come out, but right now, I think we all want to see an Alistair there getting played. Yeah,
so you get to draw 3 cards, and if you draw any cards, you get to discard 3 cards, which is great if you have Mewto VUNIon pieces in your hand, but unfortunately it doesn't. So it makes me wonder, like, where are his Pioneer hidden, and how can he access them any sooner? Because that Giratina will be charged up, will be ready to attack and take the first prizes soon. And once again, we're in a best-of-3 set. Stephane took the first game, and Mateusz not only needs to get his Mewto VUNIon up anytime soon, he also needs to take 6 prizes to win this game, actually. There's another Crashing Hammer failing, and another Crashing Hammer this time hitting. So the grass energy is gone, but considering there are 2 Mirage Gates in Stephane's hand, he can easily still charge it up next turn.
Okay, so the scoop up net there, I believe, on the Snorlax, putting the Regieleki up front. And that's going to allow any trainer card with its top attack, will allow them to bring back any trainer card and put it into the deck, into their hand. So the electromagnetic sonar. Again, these kinds of effects are amazing, but this is one of the more low-end discard retrieval. You know, having only 1 trainer into the hand, you have to accept that using your attack and ending your turn is worth it enough to just get that 1 trainer back. So put that there. And we've said Pioneer. That's really important right now. Opting to go for that rather than the draw, which is the only way to find that Pioneer.
Yeah, but it's back to Stephane, and we talked about the Mirage Gate. It's coming out now, looking at the deck, finding energies. There's the water and the grass coming out first, and I think he might play his second copy down as well. to find out more energies. He's actually shuffling back his deck, which means he might just have one Psychic Energy in hand, so he doesn't need to play the second copy just yet. But once again, I think one Grass Energy is in the discard pile, and then he has the Crashing Hammer back through that Electromagnetic Sonar. So if he hits another hat, the second Grass Energy is gone. That makes it a little bit harder for Giratina to keep attacking.
Yeah, we mentioned in the first game how much having one of your Mewto VUNION pieces prized will affect your race, and we can see that exactly right now, why VUnions are always going to be a challenge to play in the meta because of the prizing mechanic. And then it's also, we saw last game, this deck doesn't have that many ways to naturally find it, so you have to start drawing for those ones that are deep in your deck, so it's not easy.
Yeah, we actually saw a boss play there into that Morpeko. He saw the threat in Morpeko preventing him from going any further shreds, so he was like, no, I have my Giratina ready, I'm gusting up your Morpeko, taking that out before it stops me using my shred attack.
Yeah, and we see the draw here, really looking for that Pioneer. It's not going to be easy. The challenge you've got with any of these decks is getting the piece you need when you need it, and Misfortune Sister is going to be the supporter this time. So decking your opponent out is another way control decks will often try and win. Misfortune Sisters is one of the most effective ways of doing that now with the item discard and some important pieces there. Mirage Gate is also things like Switch Out will be part of that Misfortune Sisters, so taking away options here for Stephane.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite late in the game. There are 7 cards in the lost zone, a few cards on the field, in the hand, and in the discard pile. So the deck is starting to thin down a little bit and getting rid of 3 cards from your opponent's deck. Not only important pieces overall, but also just deck cards to thin out and potentially deck out. There's a Hats on the Crushing Hammer, so he's looking at the discard pile, seeing 1 Grass Energy, and opting probably to discard the second Grass Energy as well. Oh, it's actually a Psychic one.
Yes, just looked in the discard pile there to see if there was any hints as to which one of the energies was most in demand. Might have concluded none of them. I don't know if there's a Psychic in the discard there, but chose for the Psychic in the end.
And finishes the turn with another Electromagnetic Sonar, getting 1 card back into his hand.
Maybe going for the Crushing Hammer route here, just hoping to flip heads and get rid of all those energies and eventually run that deck dry.
I think it was the Misfortune Sisters actually to further thin down the deck and maybe see deck out as a win condition in this game. Considering Stephane only has taken 1 prize card so far, he will continue doing so, but if you thin down the deck, hit another item cards, looking at the deck, it's quite heavy on the item count actually. Most of the Pokemon are in play or in the discard pile, supporters have been played, so there are quite a few items. If you hit them and keep thinning down the deck, that's definitely a path to victory for Mateusz.
Yeah, that energy being found, the Psychic Energy attached to Giratina, so the Shred available and we'll knock out the Regieleki, and I think this is the stage where we start appreciating some of the challenges that Control has of finding all the pieces you need, multiple different routes to victory. You know, you can go for the energy disruption, you can go for the boss disruption. So lots of different ways to do it. The Mewto VUnion, unfortunately, not being a part of this deck. You know, the deck is named after that very set of cards, but
we have yet to see it.
We've yet to see it in play. So there has to be other packages within this Control deck.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like one major issue here is that Mateusz is missing the drawing power. Like his best option here was to Quick Ball Pyukumuku, then activate the ability, put it on the deck, and draw 1 single card. There's the Misfortune Sisters. Let's see which 5 cards he's looking at right now. Maybe hitting more items and further thinning out the deck, but there seems to be no hits actually.
Oh, that's not what you want to see. You spent a whole turn getting that back into your hand, and then it hits nothing. And you can actually see as well something that's quite impressive in terms of game management from Mateusz. He's got 2 discard piles here. He's got the one pile of stuff that's not really that important for him to know if it's there or not. And he's got stuff like the Mewto VUnion and the energies, which he keeps there just so he can keep track of those important resources available to him. Something we see a lot in these combo-heavy decks or in decks where they utilize the discard pile for their attacks.
Yeah, and we see that we're about to hit time here, 50 minutes over. Only 1 game has concluded so far, and there's no way that Mateusz actually takes the second game, which means that in versus a control deck, it is sometimes enough to win 1 single game, as long as the opponent isn't able to come back and win the second one, of course. And that's exactly what Stephane did. He kept his composure, played very reliantly and very patient, won the first game, and now it is time in the round. maximum of like 3 more turns to be played, and Stephane might just very well run out of this game with a victory.
Very calm and very professional performance there from Stephane. With the winner of this, which we're seeing now is likely Stephane, will go 19 points, and they'll still have another round to spare, which will put them through to day 2. I was about to say day 3. It's been a long day. Day 2 is tomorrow, and that will be where the top cut will go. The top players will be looking to get into there. 19 points is what they need. And these tournaments, just to give a bit of flavour for people at home, are so important for players all over the world. We've had lots of North Americans travelling over here for points, lots of Europeans, many people travelling from all over Europe here to Warsaw to try and get those points, not just for world spots, but for things like the stipend, which is going to be so key to allow them to travel to events like the OCIC in the future.
And it's quite impressive. Like Stephane keeps kind of showing up at events, keep day 2 in those events, finishing 2nd in Bilbao, and now on a very commanding position to make it to day 2. And then we have to see how tomorrow goes. But keep coming back to tournaments with different decks. Like you have those occasional players who play the same deck throughout the whole season, right? And perfectionate that. But being able to switch around decks, play different versions, and do so well, that's quite impressive.
Yeah, and that's where you start looking at the travel awards and the stipends, and these players can start spiraling and keep going to events. And at the end of the day, everyone here loves playing Pokemon and just wants to keep playing as much as possible. And I think that's there's some gestures there. Wants to just check.
So he realized, well, there's no way for me to win. Let me at least play one last supporter card. There's the Misfortune Sisters discarding 1 Mirage Gate, but Mateusz very much realized there's 1 turn left for me. That's my final turn. I will play the cards that I can play before eventually losing this game, which means Stephane Ivanoff will be our winner of this round and will be going to 19 points. It's just a matter of time. One last shuffle here from Mateusz before he's giving over the turn. Stephane Ivanoff once again very calm, sitting there relaxing and enjoying his moment.
Yeah, and we know that there's going to be 1 more round after this, so Mateusz can make it through if he wins that next round. So still a very strong position for them. And this is the key right now for these players, the local players. They really want to make it through to that day 2. And there we go, the handshake. Stephane is going to be your winner. Mateusz has 1 more chance at making it through. And congratulations.